everyone, it's Amber Love from amberunmasked.com and Vodka O'Clock Podcast. This is the time when all the podcasters and bloggers start making their best of lists. And typically, I've not used that terminology. I've tried to not say best of because it's really just stuff I enjoy and favorites lists. And also, instead of it being, hey, just favorite comic artist and favorite comic writer and favorite comic letterer and things like that, I'm just kind of making completely different categories of all of the things I enjoyed this year. So hang in there with me if you can. Of course, one of the biggest things that occupies my time is Netflix. So when it comes to what I've watched on Netflix, I discovered their documentary section. I did watch the Tig documentary. A lot of people were talking about the stand-up comedian Tig, Tig Notaro. She's a comedy writer too. And it was a good, show, absolutely. It's not like I felt the need to continuously rewatch it or anything. It was very touching and emotional. There was one on Nina Simone, B.B. King, all kinds of different other musicians out there. But the two that jumped out at me were how Sherlock changed the world, talking about how Sherlock and modern forensics kind of come together, and Drew, the man behind, let me get the name absolutely correct. Drew, the man behind the poster, about artist Drew Struzan, who does all those amazing movie posters that we grew up with. Just the ups and downs of his career and how, as work for hire, he was really taken advantage of and basically wasn't getting the money that he thought he was getting, and then somebody stole his art, and it was just like, it was so good. But you have to really kind of, I guess, really care about movie art posters and things. So that was the one that I enjoyed really the best. Mostly I do my TV viewing on Netflix too. I'm current with a couple of things like Gotham, I thought was much better this year. Supergirl debuted, and while I'm not like in love with it, I don't care if I miss it, I think it's a really good show, and I think it's really solid, and it feels so much better than Smallville and Arrow. Those are all just, I don't know, like, when you're watching them. And they're fun. There's nothing wrong with them. I like Arrow. I mean, I've watched it, but it's not like some kind of mind-blowing experience for me. So Supergirl, I think, is changing a lot of people's entertainment, especially they're talking about, oh, how it's for girls. Well, it's really not. It's just, it's really well-rounded, and I think that's pretty cool. But, oh, Scandal. Much better this season. I felt like Olivia Pope wasn't really an action hero anymore because I don't know why they kind of went off and did that sort of stuff with her. But I really like Olivia's storyline this year. And then things that I did watch on Netflix were iZombie, which I know is still running currently, but I marathoned that kind of like, watched like 1 or 2 episodes a night. And it was really good and a lot less gross than I thought it was going to be. Basically, Bones is far more disgusting. So if you were worried that, oh, but they eat brains and it's bloody and stuff, it's so much more tame than a forensics show or CSI, any of that stuff. But my favorite new show discovery was probably Grace and Frankie. It's a Netflix original starring Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda, and it's unbelievable. There should be animated GIFs for the entire show all the time. The one daughter, Brianna, I think is hilarious. So it's a show I highly recommend. Now, as far as comics go, I have read a whole lot less. So I really haven't had much to review. Black Magic debuted, and that's by Greg Rucka and Nicholas Scott. I was really impressed with the first issue. Planet Gigantic, I've talked about a lot, so I don't know what the release schedule for that's going to be, but there's basically a good single issue out there that you can get your hands on. It's now through Action Lab. Also through Action Lab is, I think they're pronouncing it Archon, or I don't know. It looks like Archon, but I think it's Archon. Anyway, if you know anything about Las Vegas casinos and how they all have themes, picture an RPG theme where you walk in, there's gargoyles and a sorceress and, hobbits and goblins and things all around the casino. But in this case, they're all real. It's really good. So that was new this year, and I really recommend it. Hero Cats, always one of my favorites. Trees by Image, which is Jason Howard and Warren Ellis. I don't know what happened to Trees because it's rock solid. It's an amazing book, and I felt like either it was delayed or maybe I just wasn't paying attention. I felt like I went months and months without seeing it. So if that's back, go check it out. Black Science, I believe they have collected or have solicited at least a huge omnibus, and it's a great science fiction adventure story. So if you like jumping through portals and racing against time and alternate universes, then Black Science is definitely a comic for you to get. My favorite of the year is probably Bitch Planet, because of course it is. If you just, I don't know, get sick of the world, get sick of American politics, oh yes, you will love Bitch Planet. Now, as far as books go, regular books, I've read a couple nonfiction books and a couple fiction. So nonfiction wise, I'm about halfway through the More Forensics and Fiction by Dr. Lyle. And it's just a compilation of blog questions that this doctor receives about what's possible from, TV writers to novelists, people who want to know things that you can do to basically kill somebody. And, what happens if you, give somebody this amount of poison, and how does it, how would bone fractures be reset in 1850? Questions like that. It's an incredible book, and it's actually the follow-up book to a previous one. And I spent my birthday in line to see Felicia Day. So it was about 1,000 degrees inside that bookstore in August. But I got there, and I did it, and I got to see her for 30 seconds, blabbering, and I don't know, turning bright red, making no sense at all. She had already had a really long day, so the picture of us is super awkward. Of course. But her book is called You're Never Weird on the Internet. And it had a lot of really relatable things and completely unrelatable things. Her background, the way she grew up, and how much of a genius she is, like super intellectual genius. And going to college really young, and then just having this amazing career. And she seemed pretty fearless. But it's interesting because she talks about her depression and how there was a month that she almost rarely got out of bed. So I think it was a really great look, an honest look at her life. And it was amazing that she shared all of that. So I know she's probably not known to many people except for the geek community, but she's an idol to us for that reason, because she's amazing. So she, went from this kind of weird kid to a nerd media mogul, and it's kind of cool. As far as fiction goes, I loved Dietland by Saray Walker. Now, when I was reading Dietland, I was like, this kind of feels a lot like Fight Club in a way. It was just the way that the manifesto of it was coming out. It's not about women who meet in parking garages or basements and beat each other up, but it is about a young woman on the inside of the beauty industry and the other women that she meets, and how they do want to take down the beauty industry and sexism and misogyny. There's this secondary arc that's in there about that. This is where it sounds like Fight Club, where they had Project Mayhem. This is called Jennifer. Who is Jennifer? Jennifer is, this presence, this vigilante going around seeking justice for, people who have made, crimes against women. But it's a question of, is Jennifer one person? Is Jennifer a group? Who the hell is Jennifer? So Dietland, go get it. You will be amazed. It's so good. It's just go get it. And also remember to hashtag it, because the people on Twitter will love you for it. As far as comic conventions go, I didn't do too many. um, Special edition was not that great this year. New York was typical. There was nothing exciting about it at all. FlameCon had its first year, and it was good for a first year, but that show had a lot of problems, and they've been wonderful and addressed them immediately. They're changing the venue for next year. And, so if I'm invited to speak again, then I'll go next year. But otherwise, I don't know that I really have any interest in traveling all the way out to wherever the hell they're having it. I think Queens maybe next year or Brooklyn again. Anyway, so getting to Brooklyn's a pain in the ass for me. There was also New Jersey Comic Expo. And here's an interesting thing. So Kate went on the day that I didn't go. And it's funny when Kate and I both post reviews of our experiences at conventions, they seem to often be the polar opposite. She had an amazing time and loved New Jersey Comic Expo, and I didn't. I thought it was a good attempt at a show, but the people that I saw there were bored out of their minds. It didn't look like anybody was selling anything except for a couple of big name people like Scott Hanna had a huge line. But everybody else looked really bored. And but I heard from Kate and then later from Jesse then they said that people did well. So I'm not sure, maybe the day that they were there was different than when I was there. Now, so here's the thing, but I did go to Garden State Comic Fest, and I had a great time there, and it felt like a really small, intimate show, and it's specifically about comics. And I had, there were issues with every show. There's always going to be something to criticize. That's why we hope it's constructive and they will be improved upon. So I don't know that New Jersey Comic Expo and Garden State are competing or anything, but like I said, it just felt like since the New Jersey Comic Expo was where it was just an uninteresting expo hall. It just didn't feel like there's any reason to go, except they did have vendors that were not at Garden State. So that was kind of an interesting thing. But Garden State, to me, was more intimate, homier, more welcoming. It's up in Morristown, so it's just a nicer town, or Mars Plains technically. But, I don't know. The Edison Expo Hall just offers really nothing to me, and walking on that cement slab floor was just painful. So, to each their own. Kate had a great time. I really didn't, take that for what it's worth. But my favorite show of the year was not about comics. So this is what I'm getting to. Sorry for babbling. Steampunk World's Fair. Every time I go, I have a completely different experience. And this year, I didn't excessively party or anything. I don't even remember if I drank. I don't even think I did. I might have had one drink the entire show. So instead, I even missed a lot of the music. The previous year, I made sure to just go and see all the bands and stuff. This year, I stuck with their one discussion panel track, which was their occult, magical, supernatural track. And it was really awesome. It was kind of like, I got to go back to the same room and take a break and then come back, and, seating was always fine. They could maybe utilize better microphones because not all the speakers seem to bother using them. So that's the one thing that could be improved upon. But otherwise, I really loved it. I was more relaxed. So that's the cool thing. The show is so bizarre that you can go every single year and have a different experience. The bands really are amazing. I mean, if you're going to come out and experience it for the first time, then you definitely have to make sure that you set aside some time for music. And as far as other coverage, I did get some video of the burlesque performance. I'm not sure if there was more than one, but at least one of the burlesque performances, so that's up on YouTube. And so my favorite show of the year was Steampunk World's Fair, not about comics. What are you going to do? So otherwise, things that you should check out in the show notes. I have a list of Pinterest boards that I really love, Patreons from people that I know and people that I don't know that I think you should check out. Cosplay this year for me was really strange. I didn't think I did very much because I kind of couldn't leave the house for a while. But then I started looking through my folders to gather up pictures for the show notes for this, and I realized, wow, I actually did a few things, and they were kind of different. So I'd mentioned Planet Gigantic before, and I had the pleasure of constructing one of the characters from that comic. And it was fun. I mean, it wasn't like the best job ever, but I was trying to do it without really spending any money. Um, and I made a big prop for it. Most of the money that was spent went into the prop. Everything else was kind of repurposed and recycled from other stuff that I had around. And I got to, hang out with one of the creators for Superhero Weekend while wearing it. So that was fun. Um, and my favorite cosplay of the year actually was probably the easiest one to do. And that was at New York Comic Con. Yeah, I know. Like, cosplay at New York is kind of, you're taking your life in your hands. But I went as Leslie Knope from Parks and Rec. Pulled stuff out of my closet, got the right kind of wig, the closest kind of wig that I could find. It wasn't perfect, but it was the best one. And made a couple props and accessories. And only about 10 people even noticed enough to take my picture. But it's New York and there's 100,000 people around. Um, so, when you're competing against big, giant, shiny things with, wings and fire and swords and stuff, I guess you don't really stand out. So, but I loved it. I love Parks and Rec and Leslie, so it was my favorite cosplaying of the year. Um, Followed closely by Queen Neva from Planet Gigantic. So there's pictures of that. Go look it up. Oh, and I have tutorials for that too, for the Queen Neva outfit and the props. So go look those up. And I hope that I've babbled long enough and I've said and a whole bunch of times. And this is probably going to take a whole lot of editing. But thank you for supporting the show and the website through Patreon. You just go to patreon.com/AmberUnmasked if you didn't know. And if you have any questions, like Twitter is probably the easiest place to find me, or you can shoot me an email. And hopefully I'll get out more in 2016, or at least to different places, because I really would like to see some different towns once in a while. I've been kind of sticking close to home, and so who knows what the new year is going to bring. But I hope you guys like all the content. And if you have any suggestions and stuff, let me know. Have a great new year.